I never saw myself as a pastor's wife. I never wanted to be one. What changed, how we got on the same page, and where we are now. And this video is for the women who maybe their spouse is being called into the ministry and they're struggling with these feelings, wrestling with I didn't see this for my life. And I know that this could be good, but like I just I don't see myself in this position. Or maybe you yourself, you're wrestling with being called to go into the ministry in some form or fashion. Maybe you're feeling like you need to pour more into your church or whatever it may be. Or this is for the person who is in uncertainty right now, and you're feeling like you're being called to a different job or a different place where you want to live or wherever it may be. You're in a season of uncertainty, and hopefully this just kind of gives you some peace that you're not alone and that you're not the only one who can feel like you're on this straight and narrow path with your life, and then whoop, you are in a totally different direction and you just feel turned upside down, and you don't know if this is you just being crazy or if this is God's calling or what in the world's going on. But let's get into this topic, and I hope that it's encouraging to those who watch it. So let's back up and start with where we were before we got where we are today. So we had gotten married. Me and my husband had gotten married in 2015. Almost 10 years we've been together, which is wild. December 2015, December bride. And we had been living in a small town in northern Minnesota, or like central northern Minnesota. And I had been doing pretty well in the job that I was doing with. I was a beach body partner, beach body coach, whatever you want to call it. I had started that in 2018. Crazy. I had started that in 2018, and we had 3 kids up until that point. And I was rocking my business, and Scott was doing better every single year. He was a financial advisor with like a Christian company, and he was loving it. He was doing really well. I was doing well with what I was doing, and we had paid off our student loans. We had paid off a lot of our debt, and I had finally seen, because we were struggling those first few years of our marriage with young kids, young parents, and we didn't have a lot of wiggle room. And I remember just begging to Scott one day, like, can we please just buy Folgers coffee? Like, please, can we buy Folgers coffee? Like, that's how much we were like pinching pennies. We would get like the off brand, like not like the good, like there's like gourmet, coffee at Aldi. We got the really like off nasty, like I think it was like 99 cents for the entire container at the time. And it was just so gross, but it was coffee. And so I drank it. And I just remember being like, Scott, can we please just get it? And he's like, Katie, no. He's like, we are trying to save money in any way that we can. So I felt like we had gone through these years of just me busting my behind with this Beachbody business. And then Scott was working so hard with his work and, young family. And I was struggling with like postpartum depression and anxiety. So like we had just been through a lot. And then I just felt things open up. Like I felt that our finances were getting better. We were paying off debt. We were paying off student loans. Like it was just feeling like, my goodness, like this is the start of our life. Like this is when we can start living. And I would say there was a good like 18 months where I felt like we look back and we're like, we were rich. And like if anyone had looked at our life, they probably wouldn't been like, okay, you guys were not rich, but we felt rich because for the first time we didn't have debts to pay off. For the first time we were paying off everything. Like our cars were paid off. Like we just felt like we had extra money to get our kids like really nice gifts for Christmas. Like there was one Christmas I got the kids a Nugget couch. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like this modular couch, and it's like, to me it's very expensive. And so buying that for my kids, I just felt so proud of myself. So that's kind of where we were with like our finances. And I just saw us kind of living this white picket fence, like buying a bigger house and a better house, and that I can buy better makeup and better skincare and nice clothes for the kids and nice clothes for me and nice clothes for Scott. And we can have nicer cars, and we can, I just felt like finally I'm gonna live this life that I always dreamed of living. And a little backstory with me, my dad was a pastor. I have 6 siblings, and my mom stayed at home with us. And so I didn't grow up with a ton of wealth. My parents were very frugal and very wise with their money, and so they taught me a lot, but I just didn't grow up with excess or being able to just like buy a shirt that I wanted to buy. Like I've always just kind of lived in this life of like, we don't have a lot, so you have to get the cheaper option or you have to thrift it. And I just was looking forward to this life of just like buying whatever I wanted to buy. It sounds so like worldly, but that's kind of where I was at. That's what I dreamed for myself, okay? Our plans for our life was just to keep on doing that. We had talked about getting like a lake home and just like investing into our life so that we could host big parties for my family. Like I said, I have a big family, and I just saw us just living this like bigger than life, being able to be like super generous and giving to church and to charities and to all these things that we wanted to give to, plus just be able to like live a more luxurious life. And in my mind, seeing how my parents were and how my dad was in the ministry, like I'm not saying that this was my parents tainting it in a bad view. I just saw what it was like. I saw that pastors didn't get paid very well. The church, the synod that we're at, and I know some people, maybe what you're used to is like the mega churches, and you hear about these pastors, who make all this money. That was not the world that I grew up in. My dad, wasn't a mega pastor, and we weren't a part of mega churches. We were in a very small town. It was like a town of 400 people, and it was like a rural church. And so that's kind of what I had grown up with. And I just saw pastors' wives. I felt like they were just worked to the bone. And they, were the choir director, the Sunday school teacher, the one baking all the things for the ladies' aid and for all the church functions, because that's what my mom did. And she was the organist, and she was the piano player at the Sunday school thing, and she was the Sunday school teacher, and my mom did it all. And so in my mind, I was like, I could never do that. And I married Scott because I knew that he wasn't going to be a pastor. And so that was really nice to me. I didn't want to be a pastor's wife. I just wanted to just kind of like skirt under the radar. And at that point, I was enjoying having people not know me or recognize me, because up until that point in my life, until we got married and moved, I had gone to churches where everybody knew who I was. Growing up, you're a pastor's kid, you're from a big family, you're homeschooled. So I just always kind of felt like I was in this fishbowl, and that people could just, they knew everything about me, and I couldn't miss a service. I had to be at everything, literally everything. And so when we had moved to this small town and we were doing well with our finances and all that stuff, it was just enjoying going to a church that I really liked. And I just liked being able to go to church and leave and not have to do anything extra. And like, yeah, we were part of some committees, and my husband was like a part of the like financial committee, or I don't know, but I didn't feel like I had to be a part of all these things. So I was kind of enjoying that. And yeah, that's where we were with our faith, with our life, with where we thought we were headed at that point. And like I said, I mean, truthfully, I was just enjoying going to church, leaving, not having to do anything more. May. And I'll never forget it. It was in May. It was in May of 22. And at this point, our youngest was over a year old, and I was finally like getting my body back, getting my spark back postpartum. And we had 3 boys, and I was doing really well with my career at that point. And I just felt like every single year I was like doubling my income, and things were just getting better. And all this hard work, all of this that I was putting into it was paying off. And we were on a walk. We go on a walk every single night. Like in our town, we were known as the family that walks. That was our claim to fame in our town of 1,000 people. And so we were on a walk, and my husband had just come back from this, like, what did they call it? It was some sort of like circuit meeting for the church that we were a part of. Like they had different district meetings. And so he had gotten nominated to go with our pastor to this like circuit district meeting. And it was one of those things where they were like, hey, we nominated you because you weren't here, type of thing. Like people typically didn't want to go to those things. Like it was extra things. And so they nominated Scott, and Scott was like, well, I can't really not go. And so he was nominated as one of the church parishioners to go with the pastor. So they went up to this thing, and I was home with the kids, and he was at this thing. And I felt like every day when he would call me, I think it was like over a weekend, like a 3-day thing, he would tell me how on fire he was about our church, about the ministry and what was going on. And I was just kind of like, I wasn't surprised, because Scott has always been into like the church politics of it all. He's always been into just like he would have deep, long conversations with our pastor. And like we went to a Lutheran college together. Like that's how we met. And so talking about faith and talking about religion and talking about the Bible and talking about theology and all of that stuff wasn't really like, I knew that was a passion of his, but just the way he was talking about it and just the things that they were voting on and the things that the church district was having conversations on, all of that, it was like he was on fire about it. And so I listened because I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm so glad that this is more fun than we thought it was going to be. So he was having a great time. And when he came back, he was telling me all about it again in more detail as we were on our walk. And as we were walking, I remember just having this feeling of like I felt like I was having this out of body experience. And in my mind, I thought, my goodness, is he about to say that he wants to go into the ministry? And like, it was one of those thoughts where, like, when you're walking down the stairs with your baby, and then you're like, well, how bad would that be if like my baby fell out of my arms and he fell down and hit his head and it broke open? Like, it's like those intrusive thoughts. That's how I felt like I was having an intrusive thought of like, my goodness, what if he's about to say that he wants to go into the ministry? And I'm like, oh, Katie, that was so crazy. Why did you even think that? Like, that's so wild that you just thought that. That's super wild. Stop thinking that. And so we're walking, and then Scott like finished whatever he was talking about. And I go, Scott, I'm like, I literally just thought you were about to say that you want to go into the ministry. Like, I literally thought you were just about to go say that. And then I'm like, but that would be horrible. Like, that would be horrible. It would literally ruin my life. It would literally ruin my life. And then I just kind of like laughed it off because, like I said, it felt to me like an intrusive thought that you're like, that's crazy that I just thought that. Like, that would never happen. Like, that's so crazy and wild, like crazy brain. And then Scott goes, well, actually, I was about to say that I feel called to go into the ministry, but after a reaction that you just gave, I'm just going to forget about it. And I was like, what? Like, you're serious? He's like, yeah. He's like, after this whole weekend, he's like, I just feel like really called to go into the ministry. At this event, one of the main topics was how people going to be pastors is declining again and again. Like, the baby boomers, that was a huge generation of people going into the ministry. And since then, it's just like totally gone down. And basically any church body needs more pastors right now. And so that was just really on his heart. And they had gone through this list of attributes of people who would make great pastors. And he's like, Katie's like, every single thing that they listed was me. He's like, I just felt like I was being called out as like a young man to go do this. And I was just like, Scott, I'm like, I would not make a great pastor's wife. Like, I'm literally not made for this. I do not see myself doing this. Like, I'm a beach body coach. Nobody would want a beach body coach, like someone like talking about online workouts to be their pastor's wife. Like, no, like people would hate it. I would hate it. It would be horrible. End of discussion. That's it. And so that's where I will leave that part of how Scott was feeling called. But he was like, if my wife's not on board, well, then I can't really go through with this if it's totally going to ruin her life. So with that, we'll move on to the next part. To expand upon my inner conflict is I just felt like like I said, who would want a beachbody coach as their pastor's wife? I don't play the organ. I'm not particularly organized. And I just saw the dreams for my family just dwindling away. I saw poverty. I saw not being able to drive nice cars. I saw having to, instead of buying the nice skincare and buying the nice makeup and buying the nice gifts for our family and being the generous people, like I wanted to be those friends where like you go to eat and you're just like, don't worry, we got the bill. And I just started to see like, I don't want to live this life of less. That's where my mind was at. And I feel very ashamed to admit that, but I also know that others would relate to that feeling. So I just saw this vision of like being in a nicer house, a better house, being in a nicer neighborhood or town, and just buying the lake home, being those people who host a bunch of people over and can just have nice things and have nice cars. And I feel so stupid saying this out loud. Like, I really wanted nice things. I wanted to be cool and popular and have all the nice things and have money. Like, who doesn't want that? You know what I mean? But I mean, there probably are some people out there like, I never care about that. But in my life, that's what I wanted. That's what I saw for my life, was just like being this mom who like goes and gets coffee and like her kids are dressed in cute clothes and we can put them in the cute, sports and the cute activities. And like we're just living this amazing life. Okay. And so I just saw all that going away. I saw struggle. I saw turmoil. I saw like the devil works the hardest on those in ministry. Like, why would he work hard on people who already don't believe? He's going to work the hardest on people who believe, who care, who are making a difference. And so I saw my husband going through hardships. I saw my kids going through what I went through as a pastor's kid, just feeling like you're in a fishbowl, feeling like you can't mess up, feeling like you can't. And I got to say that not every pastor's kid feels this way. Comment below if you're a pastor's kid and you relate to me, because I talked to my siblings about this and they're like, I never felt that way. Some of my siblings did, some of my siblings didn't. But me personally, my personality, it's like I'm a people pleaser. I want to be the best. I want to show up perfectly. And so I took that as like my dad being a pastor. I was like, I have to know all the verses. I have to memorize it perfectly. I have to know the whole catechism. Like, I can't mess up. I can't wear the wrong thing. I have to show up perfectly. And so I just saw myself going back into that. I'm like, I like going to church and then just being able to leave. Like, I don't want to have to be the one that has to be there for everything. And like, my parents, they were amazing. My dad's an amazing pastor. My mom's an amazing pastor's wife. Like, people would call randomly and they would need breakfast or food, and my parents would bring it over. Our door was always open for people stopping in our house and coming over. My mom always had treats or something ready for people. Like, they were just the most giving to the church of anyone. And they still are that way to this day. And I just see that and I'm like, I can't be that. I like my space. I'm weird. I just want to like be in my own little bubble in my own little house with my own kids. And like, I don't want to be judged for everything. I felt like that's where I was at. Okay. So this is this inner conflict in me of not wanting to let go these worldly things like money, a nice house, good cars, being able to be the generous ones. Like, basically all of these things that were holding me back were just was my pride. Was that I thought, once I become a pastor's wife, I'm going to be looked at differently. And no one would want a pastor's wife like me because I'm sinful. Like, I am so sinful. Like, look at me. I don't want my husband to go into the ministry because I just want to have nice things. Like, how messed up is that? So that's where I was. And now I'm going to share kind of how God just changed my heart through all of this. Change of heart for me was hearing Scott in that month of May, talk about how he wanted to be a pastor. And he very much was like, okay, if you're not into this, Katie, then we're not going to do this, because I value our marriage more than me going off and doing this ministry thing. I just saw like, oh my goodness, we're going to backtrack our whole life. You have to go back to school, because to go into ministry, it's going to be at least 4 to 6 years of schooling. So that's 4 to 6 years of you not being able to work full time. And I'm just taking off with my career. Like, I don't know if I can provide for our whole family and provide the lifestyle that I am getting accustomed to. That's where I was at. And it was in that same year in July, our pastor had done a sermon on the need for pastors. And he talked about how, I have to pause, I have to back up for a second. With my body career, like when I started, I wasn't making a lot of money. I had decided to stay home, quit my job when we didn't have any money at all to be able to just pursue being a body coach. Okay. And so Scott was always super supportive of me with that. Like, he never was like, that's so dumb, you want to do that thing. He was always like, Katie, you're having fun. You're good at it. Like, you're getting fit and healthy and you're loving it and you're helping other moms and like it's bringing in some income. It's paying for the product. Like, this is great. Like, he never made me feel stupid or shut down it at all. And so I was kind of having this inner feeling within myself, because I always told myself that I'm doing this with body so that my husband can go do whatever it is he wants to do. So he can retire and he can go do whatever it is he wants to do, start a YouTube channel. Like, I thought that's kind of what he would do, like something totally different, not become a pastor. And so I'm having this like inner feeling of, Katie, here you were, saying how I'm doing all this stuff so my husband can do whatever he wants. And now when push comes to shove, you're like, but not that. He wants to be a pastor, but yeah, anything but that. So like, he wants to do the most like noble thing, like go out and be a pastor where you're not making a lot of money and you're just serving other people. And it's, it's a thankless job, and it's a job that people often look down on. And it's like, you're gonna have to go back to school, you're gonna have to learn Greek and Hebrew, and that's what he wants to do. And I'm the one who's making him not do that. Like, I felt this inner struggle with like, what is wrong with you, Katie? And then our pastor did a sermon on how there's this need for pastors, and he just I felt like the pastor was like looking at me like, Katie, this is for you. And he didn't even know. And I told him that like after the fact, like when we had decided all that, I was like, that sermon changed it all for me. And he was like, I got to do more sermons like that. Anyways, but he just talked about how like God calls all kinds of people. And if you see these people in your life who you know would be good at this, you have to encourage them because that's how we get pastors. And he shared his story of how he thought he was going to be a farmer. And then somebody had brought it up to him like, hey, have you ever thought about being a pastor? And now he's a pastor and he's a phenomenal pastor. And I was just like sitting there in church thinking about Scott is an incredible public speaker. He's so good with words. He's so good with people. He loves like having big groups of people together. He loves buildings. Like this is so weird. He loves buildings. Like he loves stadiums and churches and places that hold a lot of people. He loves them. Like we will stop. We'll be in a car and he'll just want to stop and go look at these buildings. Like he will go like knock on church doors just to go inside and look. And so like all these things are whirling in my head of like, Katie, this is what God has meant for him to do. Like, who am I to stop God's calling on my husband to become a pastor? I'm like, he'll carry us through. If this is what God is meant to do, God will carry us through. Like, why am I acting like I'm this arbiter, like I know all, when this could be great? Like, I should stop worrying and just give it to God because Scott, he can, like, this is what he's meant to do. So I'm sitting there. I feel like the pastor's just talking right at me. And then I just felt this conviction within me of like, when I get home, I'm going to bring it up to Scott. Because at that point, so in May, he brought it up. I was like, no, no, this would ruin my life. Then he never brought it up again. Okay. So now we're in July. So it's been like 2 months. Scott hasn't brought it up again. And I'm like, maybe this was just like a fleeting thing and he actually doesn't want to do it. But either way, I feel convicted in my heart to tell him that, hey, if this is still on your mind, we'll figure it out. Like, I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll figure it out. And so that day we were having lunch and we were eating and I go, Scott, so what did you think of the sermon? And then he like stopped eating and I'll never forget. He looked at me, he goes, what did you think of the sermon? And I was like, well, I'll just say that if it's still in your heart to become a pastor, I am no longer going to be the person who's stopping you from doing that. If that's something you want to do, don't stop that calling on my behalf because of me. And so he was like, are you serious, Katie? He's like, that's the only thing that's been holding me back is the fact that you weren't on board. So the next day he called like 3 different seminaries and we began our journey on figuring out what seminary to go to so that Scott could become. So now here we are in 25. And I wish I could say that like everything has been so smooth and perfect and nothing bad has happened. Well, things have not been smooth and it has not been perfect. And I will most likely cry. So that July, it was like end of July that we had decided, okay, this is what we're going to do. And then August, it was a lot of talking to people. So we talked to Scott's family, we talked to our pastor, we talked to my family, we just like talked to people about this big shift that we were going to make. And then it was that fall in October, we went and we visited different seminaries. That'll be another story for another time, how we chose the seminary that we're at. But anyways, we are here now in Mankato, Minnesota, and my husband is in his first year at seminary. So last year he was doing languages. So he did Greek and Hebrew. Right now he's in his second year of Greek, his first full year of seminary. He has 2 more full years of seminary, and then he has his vicarage year, and then he will be a pastor. So about 3 years until he's an official pastor. So it's a process. It's a big process. It's a lot of schooling. It's not easy, and that's where we're at. And during that time, so October, we went and visited churches. That November, we found out that we were pregnant with our 4th baby. And that December, I ended up having a miscarriage. And I just remember feeling so like, God, thanks. Here we are. We're going to go. We're going to live our life for you. And this is how you repay me. Like that's, as you can tell, I'm sinful just like you. We're all very sinful people. Okay. We're all just trying our best, but very low. That was a very low time in my life. Then we ended up getting pregnant with our now, I guess, 5th baby, but 4th baby here on earth in February of 23. And then we ended up having him in October of 23. We also ended up moving in June of 23 to our new home. And it was a way smaller home, about half the size of our other home. And I just felt this shift immediately when Scott quit his job in April. And it's been a huge, giant season of trust in God, lean on Him because we don't have all the answers. We do not have all the answers. And I still struggle some days thinking that, my goodness, I don't think people are ready to have me as a pastor's wife. Like, I don't think I bring anything to the table. But now, after talking to so many other pastors' wives, they have just shared with me how no one expects you to be superwoman as a pastor's wife. They just want you to support your husband. Like, that's your number one job, is to support your husband in his career. Like, as a pastor, you don't need to be pastor number two. And so that's given me a lot of peace of like, my job is to be wife, is to be mom. And if I can fill other roles in the church, I will do my best. But my number one role is to support Scott. And that's all I can do. And I'm not going to be perfect. I know that for a fact. I will not be perfect. But I also know I have other skills. Like the other day, I was just like daydreaming about like a Bible study I can lead for some women. And I'm like, this is going to be awesome. And so, God works in mysterious ways. And if you are feeling like I'm not cut out for this, just know that God uses so many different kinds of people. Like, just think of the 12 disciples, how they were all so different. And I think it's just a reminder for us that all the, all the people in the Bible, they had issues. Like, think of David. He had a lot of issues, but he wrote a lot of amazing psalms. And so I look at that and I'm like, if God can use all of these sinful people in the Bible and they did amazing things, and we see that even today, we see sinful people doing amazing things and, leading churches. And there maybe and we all have different strengths, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. And so if you feel like I am not cut out for this because I'm not good at speaking, or I'm not good at this, or I'm not good, you have other gifts and talents that you can give to the church in whatever way it may be. And when I think of it at like the end of the day, just caring for your family, or not just, but caring for your family, taking care of your home, like that is God pleasing. All of that is God pleasing. When we just show up for the vocations that we have in this life with a good attitude and we're trying our best, like that is pleasing to the Lord as well. So maybe you're not feeling called into the ministry or anything like that, but just know, if you are, you're not alone in feeling like, I'm feeling called, but like, who would want me? I don't fit the mold. Well, neither Scott and I didn't feel that either. Like, Scott was thinking, oh my goodness, I can't learn Greek and Hebrew, but look, here he is learning Greek and Hebrew. Like, you can do it. Like, those nudges that the Holy Spirit puts on your heart, they are real. They are there for a reason. And I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring this out as I go. I just know it's going to work out because I keep telling myself and my husband, like, God's gotten us this far, not to get us this far. He's going to keep going with us. And like I said, I wish I could say that the story was just, everything worked out perfectly. But as luck would have it, I ended up losing my job last October, in October 2024, which is a part of the reason why I started this YouTube. And, we've just, somehow God is sustaining us. Like, my income was basically cut completely, and you're a family of 6 now, and life isn't cheap. It's actually the most expensive it's been ever since we've been married. But somehow God is sustaining us. Like, we'll randomly get a check in the mail from some random person. Like, people have just been coming out of the woodwork with kindness because they know we're in a pickle. Like, we are in this season of life where we are on our hands and knees asking God to sustain us through this, as Scott's in school and as I'm, taking care of the kids and trying to figure out this work stuff. Like, it just will all work out. It will all work out. It's a messy, beautiful thing. And Scott reminded me the other week, he's like, Katie, everything's so upside down and backwards that the only one who can come in and fix it is God. So like, there was just a moment to be like, God, this is so messed up. I don't know how to fix any of this. So it's on you now. And it is. And he's got, this is my call to action. If you or your husband, maybe your husband or you are feeling called to this, I don't know who's watching this, but if I'm speaking to the wives right now, because that's who I can relate to. If your husband is being called into the ministry, just know that God is patient with all of us. And he obviously knows our weaknesses. He saw that, like, Katie's got some issues here. She doesn't see, she doesn't think she can do this. And even now, like, I feel like I'm finally just like letting go of the grasp of like, God, you got it. And he writes the stories for us, and maybe they're not the stories we would have written, but we wouldn't want to change it. And he's patient with us. And so if you are feeling this call, just know you don't have to have all the answers right now. Like, you can take your time. It'll all be answered. You're going to figure this out, and God's got you. He's got you. He's got all of us. And I'll keep sharing about, our journey here with ministry and Scott being in school to become a pastor, and just all of this stuff is very real. And I know I'm not the only person who has dealt with this. Like, Scott was in a financial advisor position for almost 9, 10 years. I was rocking my job. We just saw this like perfect vision for our life. And then, like, you don't know when God's going to call you. That's my story. And if you relate to any of this, please comment some prayer hands if you made it to the end of this, and please share your story, especially in the comments, because I know if other women whose husbands are feeling this call and they're kind of like struggling within themselves, or they're feeling a call, like, I know that your comments and sharing your story will encourage them as well. I'm just one person, but I think seeing other people, that we're all just doing our best here and just trying to follow God's calling, and just God is patient with us. Thank goodness He's patient with us, and that He works through sinful people like me and my husband. And hopefully one day when he's a pastor and I'm a pastor's wife, we can bless whatever congregation we end up at. Maybe it'll be your congregation. Lucky you. But just thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. I will continue to share encouraging motherhood, more of just the things that I like to talk about too. Thanks for watching, and I would love to hear and know your thoughts about this topic. I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope I did it justice, and all glory to God, because truly He has completely changed my heart. And I know that all these things that we've gone through in our life have just set us up for being able to help and encourage other people when we're at a church. So I know. And I will say, I was hesitant last year when he was in Greek and Hebrew, and now that he is preaching, and now that he is writing sermons and he's writing lesson plans, and he's, teaching Sunday school classes and whatnot, like, I just see, my goodness, this is 100 million% what Scott was meant to do. And it just makes all of these years of leading up to this so worth it. And I know you will see that too when you see your husband just step into this calling that God has called him to, or when you step into the calling that you've been called to, you're just going to see that, like, here I thought I had a perfect plan, but God knew this whole time that I was meant to be here. And that is just a total God thing. So all glory to God. Thank you for watching. Appreciate you. Love you. Subscribe. That's it.